two men are going out for a walk. They're walking down the street when suddenly it begins to rain. "Quick," said one of the guys, "open your umbrella." "It won't help," said his friend. "My umbrella is full of holes." "Then why did you bring it?" the friend asks. "I didn't think it would rain."
I like it.
That's the response.
I like it.
Okay, we like it. No, not enough to laugh, but enough to tell me I like it. That works for me. Well, hey, listener at home, welcome in to another edition of TBL News the Pod, or TBL News the Video Pod if you're watching over there on TBL TV or on YouTube. This one, I know you're probably getting sick of this. This one is special, though. I keep saying every episode is special, but this episode really is special. We're trying something new for the first time, and I am telling you, as we rehearsed this and got our notes together, this will not be the last time we do this. If you are watching, you will see two faces on the screen. Neither one of those faces is mine. I am the disembodied voice coming to you from the beyond. I am nothing more than a microphone, and I'm here to set the stage for the two real experts, the brains of the operation, the heart and soul of TBL News, the TBL News writers. On one side, you got Jack Morgan, who covers the Albany Patroons for us here at TBL News, and on the other side, Owen Whetstone. You really want me to get the H in there, right? You prefer when people say Whetstone?
I don't know if I've heard that too many times, actually. I don't mind it, though. I'll say that.
It's just my East Coast Jewish wit. Owen Whetstone is here. Owen covers a lot of teams for TBL News, but we're having him focus on the Kokomo BobKats today, and we're going to have a fun little conversation because what we got here, folks, is representation of two first-class, first-place TBL teams. Albany are first in the East, Kokomo topping the upper Midwest. They're both looking pretty darn good as we near kind of the midway point. It's at least All-Star break next week. We've got a couple of games to go before All-Star comes in and interrupts everything and gives everybody a rest. Before then, Kokomo's got a couple of matchups upcoming this weekend. Who's it? It's Lebanon and
the West Virginia Grind.
West Virginia, who they just keep playing tough games. They're having difficulty finding that W, but they're always tough. They grind it out, as it were. And Jack, you guys have an NBLC matchup this weekend, which looks pretty tough. You're one of those defending champs from London, are you?
Yeah, indeed we are. It should be a very interesting test for this team.
A test indeed. It will be a measuring stick, but before we get to next week, let's take a quick look back. Week 4. It was kind of moving day, at least in the Midwest. It happened in the Central too, but that's for another conversation. In the Midwest, we have a new first-place team coming into the weekend. We're talking a lot about Chris Darrington and those Glass City Wranglers. Well, they played 2 games against the Kokomo BobKats, and things didn't exactly go Glass City's way, did they, Owen?
Yeah, no doubt. They did not. It was a box office matchup as Hawthorne took on Darrington in the game on Friday as well as on Sunday. And Kokomo got the best of them in both matchups.
So talk to me a little bit about those matchups. And what I'm kind of interested in unpacking here is you got the Kokomo of week 1, everyone's getting their feet wet. The Kokomo of week 2, people are finding their rhythm. Kokomo week 3, okay, we're starting to understand who this year's Kokomo is, and now Kokomo week 4. Are you seeing an evolution of this team, or is Kokomo very much what you get is what you see? No, I've got that backwards. It's getting late, guys. What you see is what you get with Kokomo, or are we seeing an improvement week over week, and thus put on full display with 2 big wins over who used to be the first place team in Glass City?
Right. Yeah, I think. For the most part, what you see is what you get. You got Hawthorne, who was on the team last year, who's returning, playing even better than he did last season, averaging about 7 more points than he did, all the way up to 28 points per game. And then you got the great Cliff Livingston at the helm. He brings a fundamentally sound, both offensively and defensively, team to any competition he takes part in. And great in-game adjuster, and he gets the most out of his guys, as just about every guy on this team has had a game where they've scored over 10 points per game, or 10 points in a game this season.
Yeah, definitely a well-distributed team in terms of who takes responsibility for winning a particular game, for putting the ball in the bucket. There is that guy Hawthorne, though, and as you talk about adjustments, we've seen a couple of times over the course of the past couple weeks, Hawthorne could be very quiet in the first half, right? And then it comes out in the second, and suddenly he's unstoppable. Let's talk just a second, then we're going to get to you, Jack. You're being a very kind and patient young man. We appreciate it. What good hair this guy has. My goodness. Owen has a wonderful head of hair too. He's choosing not to show it to us. If you're just listening to us through your speakers, Owen's wearing this cool, what they call up north, a toque in Canada. For our friends at Alma and the Tundra, Newfoundland would call it a toque. Jack looks like an 80s James Spader. But don't get nervous, guys. He's a good guy, all right? James Spader always played the bad guy. Jack, you're a good guy here. And we're going to get to you in just a second. But dive into Hawthorne for 1 second for me, Owen. As you mentioned, 7 points per game better over last season. The guy's turned into a real MVP candidate.
100%.
If you wanted to stop Hawthorne, could you?
Me personally, no.
yeah, one-on-one.
I think you're going to need somebody with quite a bit of strength to stop Hawthorne, as he time and time again showed his ability to drive the ball. I think strength is a key factor of his game. Darrington, the opposition of Hawthorne in these two matchups, he's got great speed. He blows by guys, but what Hawthorne does is that he blows right through them, really. Time and time again, he drove with 3 guys in front of him and was able to get to the basket and, if not score, get a foul. And that's another thing. He gets to the line quite a bit, and he's got a well-rounded game. Good mid-range shooter, good driver, shoots the 3 occasionally, and does it all for the team. Lots of rebounds, lots of assists as well.
And when he gets to the line, folks, he's putting the ball in the bucket. He's shooting close to 90% from the charity stripe. So let's turn it over to our boy Jack over here. Jack, you're covering the Patroons. They were there in the final last year. I remember it pretty vividly. Everyone around TBL remembers it pretty vividly. There's 3.1 seconds to go. Albany's at home. The title, the Lily, as it's called, the Lily Trophy, is in their grasp. But some fella named Parks, some guy with the last name Parks, snatches it from him. And Shreveport went on to win that game and win the title. The Patroons are back this year, Jack. They're looking pretty darn good, aren't they?
Well, they came out angry. They came into the season angry. Can't blame them. And they've looked pretty good, especially this past weekend. And they came out and they played 2 wire-to-wire games, specifically against Alma. And it was a pretty good game. For the Patroons, at least. I mean,
for the Patroons, it was a good game.
For the Patroons, yeah.
Alma had a long ride home. Let's not beat around the bush. That must have been a long ride home.
Yeah.
So you said they came out angry after coming up just short on capturing another TBL title last year.
Yeah.
But you also see them improving quite a bit. Again, we talk about that transition from the week 1 Patroons to the week 2 to the week 3 to the week 4. You had mentioned in a couple of your articles on TBL News, for you listening at home, that's tblnews.co. Leave off the last M for mighty. Can never come up with a good leave off the last M.
Pretty good.
On tblnews.co, Jack has written a number of articles, and in those articles from week 1, week 2, week 3, the Patroons were having some trouble finishing games.
I think specifically obviously not last week, but the week before.
Week 3, yeah.
The games against the Gambits.
They played the Gambits, right?
And the Jackals. They blew double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. About midway through, they had either blown the lead, which they did against the Gambits, or the Jackals were within a possession of taking that lead back. And I did write in those articles, correct, that they have had some problems finishing games. And obviously I did say, at the end I left it open to the possibility that they still are getting better. And they're going to figure out ways, to kind of combat that issue, and it seems like they did. Obviously, and there are other teams like the Gambits, and the Stallions, who I believe are better than those two that they played this weekend. And we'll see how that goes. And we'll especially see when they play London this weekend, if that's really true. If it was really, if it wasn't just a one-time thing this weekend, but they looked very good. They played wire-to-wire games in which they had wire-to-wire victories. And they look, they had a balanced scoring effort, especially Currington, White, Lyle. All three of those guys have been phenomenal the past few weeks, especially Currington. And those are three guys that can get you a bucket when you need them. They might not have that all-star, that MVP candidate like Kokomo has, but they have a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket, and they play well as a unit on the court.
Yeah, when you talk about them finishing games, what comes to mind is this old adage that sometimes the best way to get the ball to go in the bucket is to see the ball go in the bucket. So, sure, Alma, throwing no shade at Alma, but just from a sheer talent perspective, they're probably not quite what the Albany Patroons quite yet, not quite in that class. Even the Atlantic City Gambits, who are in second right now, and the Stallions, had your week 1 TBL Player of the Week. That said, winning by 40 points is winning by 40 points. And that changes how you feel about yourself as a team. Specifically, if there was one takeaway from these last couple of games where the Patroons have started to look like the Patroons again, what's that one thing you see them doing that you weren't seeing too much of in those past weeks?
When they get the chance, they are getting out on the break and they're getting easy buckets. They have a lot of speed and athleticism on that team, and they are using it to their advantage. In the past few weeks, what you notice from the eye test is that that's what they're doing. That's when they are at their best. They're using that speed and athleticism they have to their advantage, and it is working very well for them. And I don't see this team getting any worse. I see them building on the things that work for them. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see this weekend. Like I said, the game against London, I think that's going to be a real good game where you can kind of be like a measuring stick to see where you are in terms of talents compared to other teams around the league.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jack. It definitely is a measuring stick game. The defending NBLC champions, they're coming into Albany, right?
Yeah. Some might argue, against a team on Albany who almost won the championship last year. So almost a battle of champions.
Almost a battle of champions. As we look to the coming week, which, as we said, is the last week before All-Star break.
Yeah.
And Jack mentions a Patroons team that's really learning how to get out on the break. And that might be their secret sauce. Let's get the ball and go, right? Let's put that ball in the bucket quick.
Yeah.
Owen, we talk about a team in Kokomo who likes to slow it down. They want that game under 100 if they can. Or, they would like to be a little bit over 100, but the opposing teams tend to not break 100 against Kokomo. As you look forward to this week, the matchups against Lebanon and West Virginia. Now, Lebanon just scored 138 points in a game, right? All right, what do you want to see from your BobKats coming off an emotional weekend with 2 big wins? They take over first place. How do they go into All-Star break the right way against Lebanon, again, who beat Medora, a very good team, 138-122, and a West Virginia grind team who nearly came back to beat Glass City when they were down 32. Pushed that game into overtime, coming up 2 points short, but West Virginia is never out of any game, so Kokomo can't fall asleep. What do you want to see from them this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, 100% the case with Kokomo. They like to slow that game down, and they like to hold their opponents under 100, and they actually usually do hold their opponents under 100. Did it once this past weekend against Glass City, then they scored slightly over the next game. But in these upcoming matchups, with West Virginia, they're a team that's going to be hungry for their first win. Still haven't gotten it. And you can't really go into the game knowing what to expect out of a team like that. That especially when you see that they had that game versus Glass City last week where they did make such a comeback. I think they're probably a pretty gritty team, a team that is on the right track to getting a W, and they might do that soon. So the BobKats definitely shouldn't sleep against the West Virginia grind. But I think they'll pull that game off. I'd like to see Alexis Jackson, their starting center, back in the lineup. I think with him, they're just that much better. I think they already can use their size to their advantage against majority of teams in this league. With him starting at center, that's just even more so the case. And then when it comes to Lebanon, I mean, they just got their star guy from the Indiana All-Stars last year, Isaac Edmondson. He's played 2 games this season, and I think with him, they're a totally different team. So that's gonna be a duel. Isaac Edmondson is averaging 22-7-7 in his games back in the TBL, and he averaged something pretty close to that last year with the All-Stars also. So that'll be a duel, him and Hawthorne. That'll be fun to watch. They have decent size as well. They got Kenny Grant, who they picked up from the Combine this past year, leading rebounder on their team, and other weapons as well. Antonio. I'm blanking on the last Antonio Davis.
Antonio.
That big game a couple games ago as well. So,
And for us 90s kids, let me just some clarification. It's not that Antonio Davis, okay? I don't know. You guys might be a little too young, but Antonio Davis, especially if I'm a New Yorker, all right? I'm a Knicks fan. I hear Antonio Davis, I get PTSD. I very much like this Antonio Davis on the Lebanon Leprechauns, and he's one heck of a player, isn't he?
Most definitely. Played last year with Flint. Actually played the last 2 seasons with Flint. So he's entering his 3rd year in the TBL. So he knows a thing or two about playing in this league and staying in this league.
So I'm going to throw it over to you, Jack, to talk about week 5 for the Patroons and really honing in on that matchup with the London Lightning, the scary Lightning. But I want to frame it just a little bit differently for you. Is it a major letdown? Is it deflating for the Patroons if they lose to the Lightning?
I think it depends on how you look at it. I think that it would be unfair to say it's a major letdown and to say it defines in total the past few weeks. You can't say they did all this good, but it doesn't matter because they lost to London. I don't think that's it should be an overarching theme of their first half about in terms of how that game goes. Now, if you get smacked around, which I don't think the Patroons will get killed by London. I think they'll play them close, but I don't think the result's going to overshadow what they've done so far in the first half. I think what I want to see is them play this London Lightning team tough, and I think they are able to do that. They're going to be at home at Washington Armory Avenue. Washington Avenue Armory.
Say that 3 times fast at home, folks.
I can't. I'm not even going to try. But it's a heck of a home court advantage, I'll say, because it really does look like the Armory is rocking on game night.
Yeah, I'll say I had the pleasure of taking a bit of a tour of, I'm going to say it slowly, Washington Avenue Armory. And there are ghosts in there, man. You go into the basement, there's stuff moving around, there's shadows.
I wouldn't be shocked.
On shadows. And they do a great deal of gamesmanship, too. The visiting locker room is not exactly a place to have a book club meeting or a tea party. I'll tell you that much. Maybe a couple of cobwebs. They've certainly got a home court advantage, and I agree with you. Look, London's a good team. All those NBLC teams are very competitive. But you're right. If the Patroons can come out and just look like a good team, I think there's nothing to worry about. I think maybe you get the jitters a little bit as you now go into a break, right? And you got teams like Atlantic City breathing down your neck if you get smacked around. But I'm with you, Jack. There's no signs of Albany suddenly losing a game by a bunch of points. I think they're going to look real good. And as we talk about looking real good, let's look to the future. Guys, the future is bright for all of us. You, especially you guys, you're young. I don't know about me, but
I appreciate
the future is bright for you. The future is bright for TBL. The future is bright for Kokomo and for Albany. So, Jack, we're going to kick this off with you. I want you to picture a future scenario, and it looks very much like the past. It's June 2023. It looks a lot like June 2022. Albany, Kokomo, regional final. Last year they split it. I shouldn't say they split it. I should say they split kind of the home and home. Kokomo won the first game at home. Albany got to go home for the next two. They won both of those games and, of course, went into what was a great final matchup against the Shreveport Mavericks. Regional finals, Albany, Kokomo. Jack, what do you want to see your Albany Patroons do to speed up that pace? Do they have to make Albany play their game, or can they win two games against Kokomo 98-95, 94-89?
Well, let me say first off, it's going to be better because it'll be warm outside. Can't wait for
Yes.
June. And I don't think that they necessarily will need to diverge from their type of game, which is playing fast, getting out on the break. And really for the Patroons, it's not as if they have won games and where they haven't, they don't always have to put up 100 plus. They find ways to win games and give credit where credit is due, especially to Derek Rowland, their head coach. He has them ready for whatever turn a game takes. Not every basketball game is created equal. And I think that them being well coached and having a few guys that are able to really take the game over, and if you need a bucket, they are all fighting to be first in line, to be like, I want to be that guy. I can be that guy. I think that's something that's overlooked with this team. It's not just Travis Weich. It's Weich, Currington, Lyle. Sometimes Philip Flory has games where he had like 14 points in the first quarter against the Gambits, I believe. That was something that came out of left field, but it is still something that can happen in the future. You got a lot of great offensive players on this team. They play good enough defense, average defense, but in this day and age in basketball, I believe that offense reigns supreme. So if you have an average defense, but you have a good offense, I think you stand a pretty good chance. And I think that's where the Patroons stand right now.
Okay, if you're listening at home, and I assume if you've made it this far, you are listening at home. I mean, heck, maybe you're listening in your car or on the street, wherever you might be listening to this. I love the point that Jack just made about the fact that in this modern game, offense might win games, right? We've always been taught defense wins games. I think that might have come from some generation with ties back to the Depression that thinks that you can only do things that are not fun if you want to succeed. But at the end of the day, you put the ball in offense. Right, exactly. At the end of the day, you put the ball in the bucket more times than the other guy, and you tend to win those games by my calculations. And Albany does that really, really well. And sometimes statistics, as you mentioned the eye test earlier, Jack, sometimes statistics don't tell the whole story. If you are pushing the ball, getting up and down the court, statistically speaking, you're going to be middle of the pack defensively. The other guys are getting many more shots at the bucket. Now, Kokomo likes to limit those opportunities that you even get to put the ball in the bucket. They slow the ball down. They want that disciplined 90s Chicago Bulls triangle offense, milk the clock, play disciplined offense that Mr. Livingston learned from some guy named Phil Jackson. Who, Jack, do you know who Phil Jackson used to coach? Some team in Albany.
He used to coach at Patroons.
I think he used to coach
I actually never
Patroons.
knew. I didn't know until around this year. So that's something fun.
Well, if you don't know, now you know. And Owen, turning to you, Kokomo, it's June, it's hot out, Jack is happy, he's in a t-shirt. All right, it's the regional final. Can Kokomo force Albany to slow down? Can they play games in the 90s against Albany? Or if Albany imposes their will on Kokomo, can Kokomo keep up?
Yeah, it's a tough call. The thing is with Kokomo, I think they have the ability to do both. They can score a lot of points if need be. They have plenty of guys who have done it this season. More than just Hawthorne, they have Larry Plummer, who's kind of coming into a role as a number 2 scorer for the team.
33 in the last game, right?
Indeed, 33 in his last outing and 19 before. And when you look at those 2 games combined, he shot 77% from the field, which is insanely efficient, no doubt about it. There's other guys as well. Edward Oliver Hampton on Friday night against the Regulars had 20 points, 13 rebounds. fudge more, consistently scoring over 10 points per game. But really, it's not about one single player, or even a handful of players. These guys all have the ability to score, and they all will. As 11 of their 12 players this season have scored over 10 points in a game. But five players on their team also average over 1 steal per game. So they have the ability to play great defense, and they have ability to play great offense as well, if they can come together and have multiple guys have big nights on the same night.
Gentlemen, one thing is for sure. You cover 2 very good basketball teams with a lot of talent on them. It's a lot of fun working with you guys. It's been a lot of fun talking with you guys. I think we might be doing this again. I guess it's kind of up to me, right?
Might be doing it in June.
There you go. Might be doing it in June. If we are doing it in June, we'll revisit this. I'm not going to put you guys on the hot seat today and say, tell me who wins. I think that there's too much basketball to be played. And we're only approaching the All-Star break, which isn't even quite the midway point of the season, but the Patroons, they're rounding into shape. They're pushing the ball. Kokomo are doing their thing. This is Kokomo basketball. That's Indiana basketball, I think, right? It's fundamental. You got your star player, Derek Hawthorne, pulling up the shorts, getting into crouch in a good defensive stance. If we can see a face-off between these 2 teams again in June, it really is going to be, what do they call it? The immovable force and the something. What's wrong with me today? What is it?
Immovable force.
And the unstoppable object? Oh, immovable object and the unstoppable force, is that it?
I think so.
Okay, I think
never
we're
really
near
good
it.
at science, so I can't really help you there.
Indiana basketball too. I 100% have the same thing. Kokomo, they kind of embody that style of play 100%.
Well, they're juniors with whom they share the gym, the Wildcats, Kokomo Wildcats, not to be confused with the Kokomo BobKats, though both teams are very good. Those high school kids really put on a show, coming up just short in the 4As, but put together one heck of a run. And what's the big man's name again?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, forget it. Let's not end on a low note with both of us forgetting his high school kid's name. But with the Wildcats season over, Kokomo, it's Bobcat season. It's going to be a good one. Albany, you're hosting the defending NBLC champions. That's going to be one heck of a game. It's going to be one heck of a season. Jack Morgan for TBL News. Owen Whetstone for TBL News. Thank you both. See you again real soon. And this is that awkward moment where I got to find a way to end the episode, and anyone at home knows that this is the annoying part because I tend to say the same thing over and over, make it seem like I'm ad-libbing. I'm really not, because we always say something along the lines of, from the TBL News Desk, signing off.
I like it.
I did too.
Okay, we got 2 likes. Look at that. I bookended this podcast with 2 likes. They like the joke. They like the sign off. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, Owen, showing the hair. Finally, you're like,